Okay, I'm going to stand in for Rabbi Smith and speak something about the parsha. This week's parsha is Parsha's Lech Lecha, where God tells Abraham, to leave where he lives and start traveling to Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. Not to be satisfied with what he achieved till now, and he needs to keep on going and do more. And one of the interesting things that we see by Avram is that he wasn't afraid to stand up and say and point out when he felt something is wrong. And they say that he was on one side of the world and everybody else was on the other side of the world. And nevertheless, it didn't affect him, and he kept on speaking. And eventually, he had students, and he started the legacy that till today has spread all over the world, the recognition of the oneness of the Creator of God Almighty that personally supervises everything that happens in this world. And this is really a lesson to all of us. We need to follow the path of Avram. There is a verse that says in Psalms of King David, Mi ala la'Hashem neki kapayim uvar levav. Who will go up Lahar Hashem, to the mountain of God, which is the Mount Moriah, where the temple is going to be built and where the two temples were. Somebody who has clean hands and a pure heart. And the question is, what is the idea of clean hands? What does it refer to? There's another verse that when they find somebody that was killed in the wilderness, the elders of the city come and they wash their hands in the stream, and they say, our hands did not spill this blood because anybody that came to us, we made sure that they had somebody to accompany them, that they shouldn't be in danger, and we definitely gave everybody food and water. So we are now not responsible for this person's death, and we're washing our hands. So the idea of having clean hands is that we're not responsible because we did what we could to save this person. So there are other things. There is an idea of, like, let's say, for example, a refuah, a medicine needs to be given to a person al pi mumche, according to a person that is proficient in understanding how this medicine works and how the individual symptoms of a person. And if somebody refuses to analyze the person that's sick, or if they refuse to deliver the medicine which was prescribed by the mumcha, by the expert, so they, in Shulchan Aruch, according to the Jewish law, they are considered like they're spilling the person's blood. So they definitely do not have clean hands if they're involved in this. There's another thing which is called Neki Kapayim from last week's Parsha. It says, the verse says that a person who spills the blood of another man, their blood will be spilled. And then the next verse right after that says that you should leave the ark and be fruitful and multiply. And Rashi brings down that the reason why these two verses are written next to each other is because a person that doesn't busy themselves with being fruitful and multiply, it's as if they're shedding blood. So being involved in a reduction of being fruitful and multiply, or encouraging like people, or discouraging people from getting married, or educate, or not equipping them with the proper outlook to be able to be married and create a stable household, to be fruitful and multiply. That is like it's like not having clean hands. It's like spilling blood, not having clean hands. There's another thing, which is the idea of there's another verse. It says God says, your hands are filled with blood and I'm not going to listen. Even if you bring a lot of sacrifices, I'm not going to listen to you. In other words, I'm not going to listen to your prayers, but since your hands are full of blood. And that refers to stopping people making a livelihood, because a person's bread becomes their blood. So if you stop a person from making a livelihood, or you do something to their job where they can't make a livelihood, that is considered your hands are full of blood, because their livelihood is how they buy their bread, and that's how they make their blood. And the fourth one is not being empathetic to a person's feelings. So you see, when a person gets embarrassed, their face becomes white, their blood leaves, and then their blood moves. So it's like killing the person. So not being cruel to a person's feeling. We spoke about earlier in the shir in the previous lesson. We spoke about people create fictitious territory, and they create a fictitious belief that somebody else is encroaching on their territory and causing them damage where they're not really causing them damage. The person is just living their life. And then we make excuses why we should um, um, make excuses why we should pursue that person and not be empathetic to their feelings. Being cruel is spilling a person's blood. Now, are you allowed to do business? And if somebody else has the same business, well, depends. You need to be good at math, and you need to be able to calculate, are they able to make a living? If the other person, because of what you're going to do, is going to make it, they're going to not be able to make their own living with their own hands, with their own effort and one work, that's considered spilling their blood. But if it's extra profit, they're making a living from their efforts, and it's just extra profit, well, that's where it's okay for you to do the same business, because you're not taking away from their actual life and the life of the family. It's extra. So it gives space for you to do your business. So let's say that, so far we have four things. First one is actually spilling blood, or withholding a medicine that was prescribed, al pi mumcha, or failing to treat, failing to give people's needs. That's actually spilling blood. The reduction, being involved in a reduction of being fruitful and multiply, is spilling blood. The third one is persons cutting up a person's livelihood, damaging a person's livelihood, is spilling blood. And also being cruel, not being empathetic to people's feelings, is also spilling blood. So really what's happening is God is giving us an opportunity to be worthy of going up the mountain of God by staying strong and not being involved in these things. But it's not enough not to be involved in these things. We have to actually, it says in law that anybody that doesn't speak up, it's as if they don't have clean hands. Anybody who doesn't speak up, so that problem, they become part of the problem if they don't speak up. So if you have an opportunity to speak up, you have obligation to speak up in order that your hands should be clean and merit to go up to the mountain of God. Now, there's really three. There's a pasuk that says, "Guard yourselves." A verse says, "Guard yourselves and guard your soul very much." And the Kli Yakar explains that you need to guard your body from obstacles, from damaging your body, but you need to guard your soul even more. You need to guard your psychology. It's much more dangerous to have a damaged psychology than a physical disease in most cases, because the damaged psychology renews a disease all the time, creates a dysfunctional behavior and can go on for generations unless it's corrected. So the damage from a doing behaviors that damage the person's psychology, person's heart goes after their behaviors. So if you do behaviors that damage your psychology, you won't even realize you've been damaged, and you're doing something that was not considered normal, and you think it's normal. You're already confused. So it's much more important, like the verse says, guard yourselves and guard your soul very much. Guard your psychology, guard your spirituality. You need to guard that very much. The damage of a damaged spirituality is much more dangerous. Now, we're dealing with, need to have social intelligence, social emotional intelligence. We're dealing with three types of people. There's the person that's awake and realize that, one second, there's cruelty over here. There's spilling blood. This is wrong. So how do we approach them? Well, we need to encourage them to speak up. We need to encourage them to speak up. So they should have really clean hands, spiritually clean hands. And then there's the type of person that's on the fence. They just want to just go on. So that's a rational person, and we need to be able to have an intelligent conversation with them. And they're open to intelligent conversations, and it's important that we have an intelligent conversation. It means that we need to do our homework to be accurate in the information that we have as best as we can, so we can have an intelligent, accurate conversation as much as possible with these people. So the people that are aware, we need to encourage them to speak and to learn their facts as best as possible. The people that are on the fence, we need to have intelligent conversations with them. And then if both of them join up, so then there's a majority of people that realize that something is wrong. We all need to protect our minds even more than our body. And then there's a third type of people who unfortunately were damaged through these unhealthy behaviors, and their psychology is damaged. And unfortunately, it's so damaged they could do an act of cruelty and think that it's good. Again, they could do an act of cruelty and be oblivious to the fact that they're actually being cruel. And it's not normal, that they're not being empathetic. They're not behaving like a human being should behave, that they actually gauge other people's feelings and behave appropriately and give space to other people's feelings. Well, maybe their faces are covered. They're not able to see another person's feelings. So they lost touch in how to do it. You look at a person's face and you mirror that face, and then you know how the other person feels, and then you have that emotional intelligence to react to the person appropriately. But some people have lost that. They're cruel. They've lost humanity. So to those people, boundaries need to be set. It's not an intelligent conversation. It's just they need to be awakened, but you can't fully awaken them. So you just need to make boundaries. Hi, you're being cruel. This is not normal. You're being cruel. And this is wrong. That's about all you can do with them. But it is very important, because historically, when you had people, like when you have this, it's called a mass formation, like a mass psychosis. Psychosis is like when what's actually going on in the outside world, when a person's internal representation in their mind of what's actually going on in the outside world is a real big mismatch. It's really mismatched. So when there's a real big mismatch, then that is a form of psychosis. The person may be very competent in other areas of their life, but the way what's actually happening in the world and what they think is happening in the world are really different. So you can't really wake that person up. What you can do is just create boundaries. Create boundaries. Tell them that they're being cruel and this is wrong. And it helps. Historically, when they've had the illness of tyranny, historically, the people that lost touch with empathy, when people stop creating boundaries and speaking out and writing letters, and they stopped speaking out, so those people started to do atrocities, because the illness got worse. They started to do atrocities. But as long as people are keeping them in check, and saying, hey, it's wrong to be cruel, so we can half wake them up. So to summarize, there's three types of people. And we have the obligation to speak up when people, it's for to merit, to go up into the mountain of God, to make sure that we have clean hands. We have to speak up, but you have to speak differently to different people. To the people that are aware, we have to encourage them to speak up and make sure that they know their facts, so they can articulate the facts to the people that are ready to listen. Then there's the people that are on the fence, but they potentially could be made aware of the facts. So those people we have to have intelligent conversations with, so they can do their own research, and we have to encourage them to think on their own. And then there's the people we can't encourage to think on their own because their brain's not working. They're very competent in certain areas, but when it comes to emotional, social intelligence, something's really, really wrong, because they are able to be cruel and think that it's kindness. So there's something wrong there. So those people, we need to, it's more of an emotional conversation, and we need to make boundaries and say, you're being cruel, this is wrong. And hopefully that's going to help them enough. God will help them to be able to regain their emotional intelligence and their compassion, their human compassion. And we will be doing the work of Avram, the work of Avram, who was willing to stand up and say the truth. And everybody should have a great Shabbos and a great week.